Hey everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to T1D with Maddie, episode number 10. I apologize it did not go up on the first of the month. I can give you 3 words why. Dental hygiene school. It has been absolutely crazy and busy, the amount of tests, quizzes, assignments we've been getting, so I've been kind of buried with that. Also, me not feeling, I feel okay, but I definitely think I'm coming down with something just because I want to cough and have all this drainage come out of my throat, so I do apologize if my voice sounds a little bit off or a little bit nasally. That might be the reason. I do have seasonal allergies too, which could make a difference. But today's episode is just more me talking about what do I think causes type 1 diabetes. Now, depending on who you ask, you can get 10,000 different answers. But most people would probably say it's a combination of different things, and I am definitely one of those people that it's not just one thing that triggers type 1 diabetes. Maybe for one person it was one thing, but I think for many of us it's a combination of a bunch of different things. And I may go into these things more in detail in a different video, but I'm just going to kind of explain what I think kind of happens and some of the research I've read pertaining to type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease, diabetes, in which our own body destroys the cells in our pancreas that produce insulin. So type 1 diabetes could be genetic based for sure. And I do agree with this, since seen as though I have some people in my family that have it. But I don't solely think it's genetic based, because if that's the case, then why do some type 1 diabetic mothers or fathers have children without type 1 diabetes? Or why is it that some parents, like my parents, who do not have any form of diabetes, end up having a daughter that is later diagnosed with type 1 diabetes? Or even at an early age, why are people diagnosed at age 5? Or some people like me are diagnosed at 19, where others may be diagnosed at 60. So it doesn't matter age anymore, and I think that's solely a thing that a lot of people used to think it was just an age thing, but it's definitely not. There may be some genes. They have done studies and have related some different genes in our genetic makeup that could result in somebody being more susceptible to type 1 diabetes. But it is not necessarily the case, because any people in my family, particularly on my dad's side of the family, could carry genes for type 1 diabetes but never develop it. That's where I'm going to lead into the second thing, is it being an environmental-based thing. Yes, absolutely, I wholeheartedly believe it's a combination of genetic factors and environmental-based things that cause type 1 diabetes. What do I mean by environment? I mean viruses, I mean chemicals in the air, toxins we're exposed to, maybe even stress or anxiety. That could kind of trigger our body to make these abnormal proteins called autoantibodies, which then think that destroying our own insulin producing cells is a normal thing, and this can happen over a long period of time. Who knows when autoantibodies started first showing up in my bloodstream, but they are definitely doing research now. If you've looked at TrialNet, they're trying to find a correlation between at what level or the amount of different antibodies present, at what point does that mirror that this child or this person will end up with type 1 diabetes within the next 5 to 10 years. And if you have one antibody present, I think it's a chance, but it's not a large chance. But if you start getting 2 or 3 or more autoantibodies in your blood, there's a very high likelihood, if you haven't started developing type 1 diabetes signs, that you will eventually develop the disease at some point in your life. Now, I was never tested previously for these autoantibodies. Will I do this with my kids? I may, just for a peace of mind, or maybe just a little bit of a preparation to say, hey, there's a chance your child could end up with type 1 diabetes. But I have said in previous videos, I am not scared to have children. To me, type 1 diabetes, as much of a hassle as it is not the worst disease to have. I see other worse diseases or type of ailments that are much worse and much more painful to have, in my opinion, such as cancers and different forms of other autoimmune diseases, or things like Huntington's disease, where it literally destroys your whole entire nerve cells, or you're getting into Alzheimer's and dementia when you're starting to lose your mind. Not literally, but you're starting to lose the ability to make memories, retain memories, and stuff like that. And I think that is much more detrimental and much more difficult to deal with than dealing with a part of my pancreas that does not secrete insulin. And especially with all the technology that's out there, as far as diabetes is concerned, I think managing this disease is getting easier and easier each and every single year to manage. Now, like I said, I've only had diabetes for about a year and a half-ish. come January here, but incredibly, the amount of technology we can have, from insulin pumps to continuous glucose monitors to eventually those things being merged together. I know Omnipod will be merging fairly quickly with Dexcom and continuing to make a closed loop type system in which I will no longer have to really worry about adjusting my own basal rate for what's happening in the moment with my blood sugars, is absolutely phenomenal to me. And I think we're going to come eventually closer and closer to a very functional way to manage diabetes without it being as much of a hassle as it used to be. But anyways, I kind of delved off topic here. I could save these more for other videos, but environmental things. So beyond being some sort of special genetic makeup chromosomally in a type 1 diabetic, not necessarily has to be either, there may be these environmental based things that trigger diabetes. So I had mentioned like viruses. It could be anything from the flu to a simple cold, to even bacterial diseases. It could be strep throat that triggered it. I had strep throat at age 11. Who knows if that's what it took to start my body to trigger? Who knows if it was some sort of cold that I had starting college that triggered my body to start making these autoantibodies? Who really knows? Or it could have been some sort of random weird toxin that I breathed in walking down the street at age 12 or 9. We don't know. There's so many other carcinogenic things that are out in this world that are not healthy for us to consume, and that can cause disruption in the way our body reproduces our cells. And if there is a disruption or something abnormal comes out of that, it can result in these autoantibodies being produced out of our immune system, these kind of rogue antibodies that are kind of overdoing their job at destroying things that don't need to be destroyed. Instead of destroying things like bacteria or viruses or fungi or protozoan that come in our body, they kind of start destroying things that aren't are particular, and it could be caused by a toxin. It could be caused by stress and anxiety. I definitely have that natural worrywart personality, so maybe something stressful in my life caused my body to all of a sudden release a surge of whatever proteins and combine together and made these autoantibodies, and they started producing more and more and more and more, like a little machine printing out pieces of paper one right after another, and all of a sudden, come July 22nd, 2018, bye-bye pancreas, the part of the pancreas that secretes insulin anyway. So I've also read research too, which is kind of an interesting thing, that they do think that a lot of people with type 1 diabetes have actually smaller than normal pancreases, which maybe mean the pancreas just can't keep up. And if the pancreas is smaller than normal, maybe it's more susceptible to being attacked by these autoantibodies that are produced inside our bloodstream. So there's a ton of different things that can really cause type 1 diabetes, but I do believe it is a combination of genetic-based things as well as environmental-based things. And I think the environmental-based thing is huge because, as I've said previously, if it was just solely genetic-based, how come everybody on my dad's side of the family doesn't have type 1 diabetes? You know what I'm saying? And there are some people that are the first in their family to know they have type 1 diabetes. There's no previous history that they're aware of. No grandparent, no parent, no great-grandparent, no third cousin twice removed that had it or something, whatever the case may be. So to me, it can't just be genetic-based. I think as we're getting further and further out into this modern world, I do think it's environmental and toxin-based. And people like myself with either maybe smaller pancreases or maybe a little bit of that genetic mutation potentially are just more susceptible and eventually could develop the ability to be a type 1 diabetic and be unable to produce insulin. So I think that's all I really wanted to talk about in today's video, kind of basic, kind of what I think. But I'd be curious to know if any of you lean more one way or another as far as environmental based versus genetic based. I'm always interested to know all these different things, and I don't disagree with anybody's answer because who knows, it could be something way different than genetics and environmental based things. It could just be something spontaneous. We don't even really know. Truly, biomedically, we don't even really have a pinpoint of what causes it. Because we don't even know how to prevent it yet at this point, nor do we really know how to cure it. So it's kind of one of those mystical things of the medical world, type 1 diabetes, even though it has been around for a long time. And it is a fairly common autoimmune disease. Not ultra common, but it is common enough to where 10% of the world's population with diabetes has or 10% of the world that has diabetes, 5% have type 1. So you think about at least 1 million or 2 people in the world, if not more, that have type 1 diabetes, and there are more being diagnosed each and every single day in different states, in different regions of the world, of different backgrounds, of different ethnicities, of different genders, or the 2 genders that we have, or whatever the case may be here. Diabetes does not discriminate, although they do say it does fall underneath more of the Northern European type genes, like myself being of like the German, Irish, Danish, Polish descent. People of like the real Northern European backgrounds like myself are more likely to get type 1 diabetes compared to a lot of the other races or ethnicities, but it is still not a 100% guarantee that if you are born with more African or Asian based genes that you're not going to end up with type 1 diabetes. But that's another thing I'll just throw out there, but it's not necessarily true. I would just say as a general rule, type 1 diabetes does not discriminate against your age. It does not care what religion you are. It doesn't care where you live in the world, what race or ethnicity you are, what gender you are, what you do, how you act, what's going on in your life. It can strike anybody. So be mindful of those warning signs. And if you're unsure and you are nervous for your own children and you're a type 1 diabetic, go get them tested for antibodies. I know they can do that. And they can give you kind of a predictive base to see if they may end up with type 1 diabetes in the future. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed T1D with Maddie, episode number 10. And remember, if you have any controversial topics that have to deal with the remnants of type 1 diabetes, please feel free to let me know down below. You may just be my next video idea to discuss about type 1 diabetes. As always, I will leave links down below to different articles that are good starting points for you to do your own research about this topic, as I do in all my other videos. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. Stay tuned. I do have a 400 subscriber celebration video coming up. I will plan on doing a day in the life of a dental hygiene student. I'm going to try to film it on a day that I have lecture and not labs, seeing as though in labs we cannot have any type of like camera or anything like that, because obviously we don't want to break any patient confidentiality versus violation and all the different things. And I'll try to film as much as I can, and maybe I'll try to incorporate dealing with a chronic condition with dental hygiene school, because it is kind of a different thing. And I hope to be talking about each semester as I go through with dental hygiene school. And I can't believe we're almost halfway to 600 subscribers, so I will have to find a little celebration video to do for 500 subscribers, so please let me know if you have any suggestions for that. For 100 subscribers, I did do my type 1 diabetes diagnosis story. For 200 subscribers, I did do a Q&A about all different things. For 300 subscribers, I did do a Vial Safe giveaway on YouTube and on my Instagram. For 400 subscribers, you will see a day in the life of a dental hygiene student. And if you want something else different for 500, or you would like another Q&A, or something more personal to me about my life, please feel free to comment that down below, and I may just use your video idea. So until next time for another video, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye, everyone.